What's that?
Okay, here, let me kill this. And we're good. Welcome, Stephen Memel. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Michael. Happy
Good to
road rally.
thank you. So far, so good. To the audience, we just had a few technical problems that were giving us a problem, so the beginning was a little rough. But anyway, while Stephen is getting oriented over there, I want to let you know, give you a little background on him. He works with clients who've won Grammys, Emmys, Tonys, and some Academy Award nominees as well. His clients have sold millions of albums worldwide, have appeared on national television, film, and a bunch of other stuff. When it comes to your vocal technique and the quality of your performance, Stephen is among the top in the world. But he's also an expert at getting your head right, so you can get the absolute most out of you. In other words, he deals with a lot of famous artistic types who may or may not have some insecurities. So he knows a lot about rejection. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Stephen Memel.
Hello, everyone. How are you? I hear it's been a fantastic set of classes so far. I've been getting reports from different people who I work with saying, wow, it's really been great. And Michael, I don't know if you've heard that yourself, but people are reacting extremely strongly to all the stuff they've seen. So you're getting enormous value. And Bria, who I'm sure you've heard from during this time, has been getting kudos as well because she is the right hand of God. Michael.
Let's not exaggerate. Anyway, yeah.
Exaggerate.
Bria's here. She's manning the chat room and many, many other things, and I'm glad to have her here. Flew her out from Kentucky. She came out with a bunch of tobacco plants for us, so all is good.
Yes, and we're going to be smoking that and some other stuff after. Anyway, I'm really happy to be here, and the subject that we're going to be talking about is, to me, a fascinating topic, and it's something that I deal with all the time, and in many different forms. And when Michael asked me to do, he asked me if I could do a class called Rejection, I jumped at the chance because, the research is so different and than we originally thought it was. What it's really about. I hope that you're going to get a new take on today than you've ever had before. And when I do a class like this, I make sure that I keep the question very present in my mind of what am I here to do, and what do I want everybody to experience or have gone through to a certain extent by the end of the session. What is something that you can take action on, and as fast as possible, so that you spending your valuable time being here, listening to what I have to say, really pays off. That it's return on attention, ROA, as a friend of mine once said.
I like it.
That whole thing of return on attention is going to figure fairly strongly into a lot of what we're talking about. So get ready. You may want to take notes, or I don't know if Michael's recording this or if you're recording it, but I also want this. I want you to know I want this to be interactive. So Michael or Bria will jump in at any given moment and maybe share something from the chat. But I'm also going to make it interactive in that I'm going to ask you questions about your experiences on a lot of the stuff with this, your sense of rejection, what do you do, how strong is it? And one phrase that I came across a number of times was the phrase, the sting of rejection, and how painful it is. And there's going to be some interesting data on that, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But I just like it to feel, even though we're here doing this, and I'll share some of the technical things with you because I think one of the greatest ways to stay focused in any kind of situation where things can be distracting is to not hide. Okay? So you don't want to hide problems. Of course, you want to be selective and have discretion in what you're doing. Like I might not say, it didn't happen, but the seam of my back seam of my pants split open right before camera went on. I would just say that probably wasn't a good use of time, but we had some things because I'm doing this on an iPad, so the only way we could get my image right side up was by turning my iPad around. So I'm not looking at a screen, I'm looking at a dot and speaking to you. So
and you're doing a really good job of it so far. I'm glad the dot likes you.
And I like the dot too. And actually, since we all have to be on camera so much, one of the conventional pieces of wisdom about speaking to camera, which got me into trouble all the time until I went, that's a load of different stuff. Conventional wisdom, unfortunately, is most of the time just that, conventional. So I was taught when I was a young actor to look through the camera and talk to the people. That pretty much put me into a bad space all the time because most people get in front of a camera and all of a sudden their experiences, they transported to another universe. They don't realize they're standing in the same room. So I can sometimes, to focus myself, talk literally to the dot, anthropomorphize it rather than try to, take my attention, there's that word again, and try to, laser bore it through the lens. So you just, hello, Dot. How are you, Dot? You're looking very good today, Dot. But I'll give you a couple more tips if anybody wants them later on about being in front of the camera and being able to be relaxed and natural. So anyway, that's that. And now, I said I wanted this to be interactive, and I want everything to have a point. So I just shared something so that if I was a little overheated or moving fast, which I feel like I'm calibrating pretty well, what was the reason? So my sharing that with you right now, my drawing that to your attention, how does that feel? I mean, I'd love to hear people in the chat. Did it feel, put yes if it felt fine and if it makes you feel a little bit more connected to the truth, or no if you really wish I had never shared that with you. What are we getting?
Nothing yet because there's a slight delay. And what was the question again? I didn't.
The question was, did it have a positive effect, an engaging effect? My sharing that with you?
Yes, we're getting all yeses. Oh,
right.
Except for Wendy Lander says she's neutral.
She says what?
She's neutral.
She's neutral. I'm glad, Wendy. And you see here is a very positive thing that comes of it, even if somebody doesn't like it. Because when I acknowledge you, Wendy, and don't feel bad about that, it makes us all feel a little bit more connected. As a matter of fact, when you respond on live chats on YouTube, and you give negative comments and thumbs down, the creator is equally as happy because it works the algorithm the same way.
Oh, so, good to know. Then that must mean Google loves me.
Google loves
or I mean YouTube.
They called me the other day and they said, really? You're going to appear on something for him? Anyway, moving on directly to the idea of rejection. Rejection. Can anybody give me a good definition of rejection? Any ideas or any thoughts on that?
I'm waiting for the chat room. I've got an
Oh
idea,
yeah,
but
chat takes time, so
yeah.
I'll let you put that up. I'll let you wait for those and interrupt me when you get there, so we don't wait on dead space. So, and I'm going to be going back and forth through some notes because I want to make sure I do everything in a very solid order here. So we're looking
It minimizes you, devalues you. Jesse Peck says first date, not being accepted, submitting my music to Taxi, having it returned, which is, frankly, that's a knife in the heart. These are all reasons that I wanted you to do this because, look, at Taxi, we're in the business of having to make some very serious decisions on if music is good enough and right enough for a particular thing. And we know that we're breaking people's hearts. That's why we concentrate so much on the educational side to give them value there, to lessen the sting, and to give them a takeaway that helps move them forward.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's not only something that I know you truly care about from having known you for so many years, but it's going to make a big difference to each and every one of you by the end of this talk. So the first thing I want to do is introduce the idea that every single one of those reactions are reactions that you've created in your mind. They are self-conceived stories about an actual neutral event. Of course, would you rather everything got passed through and bought? Of course. But the highly negative spin and interpretation that you put on each and every one of those might have zero relationship to the truth of the situation. So why do we do that? Hang on a second. I just noticed that I'm losing battery here. Pardon me. So why do we do that? Well, first of all, sorry?
It's all right. We're not going anywhere.
Okay.
It's the age of COVID. We're all used to the Zoom effect.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And a couple people are saying that they can't hear you all that well. I've got my volume up here. You're like on 9.7.
I'm wondering.
It's not that bad.
You know what? I think there's something I can do, but it might take me a second off screen. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on. I'm going to have to go into the settings.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. I'm your entertainment until he figures it out. He needs a preamp. No, he's doing it on an iPad. I don't know. I guess he could use a mic pre going into the iPad, but I have a thing I cut out and put on the door of my office. I don't know if you remember what it said, Bria. Something like value criticism over acceptance or something like that. I can't remember now. Anyway. I try and look at that every morning when I go to the office. Back in the day when I used to go to the office, I would look at it and try and remember to keep that in the front of my brain. Michael, what camera are you using? Your video is crystal clear. I am using a Logitech Brio, which I've been using for well over a year.
You still there?
I am.
Do you know where the general volume is for in the settings on? Does anybody know where they are under what tab? In settings.
I don't have an iPad, so.
Okay.
Sound. It'll if it's anything like a MacBook Pro, it'll have a little speaker and it'll say sound, and then you go to input.
How is this?
I don't know, because
Better if I stand closer?
anybody want to address that on the receiving end? You sound loud enough. Just stand
Okay.
right there. About the same.
Can you see me okay? Or do I look
Yeah.
like this?
Well, now you deserve rejection after that
Yes,
face.
I do. All right, so I'm going to be here and I'm going to talk loudly. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Closer
All right.
is better, people are saying, but whatever. I mean, I've got you goosed over here. Literally, I've got you like
Okay.
as high as it will go.
All right. Well, if you can hear through this, that's great. Make sure to record it so you can hear more later. All right, so let's get back to that. So remember, what we're saying is that you have constructed in your mind what the interpretation of those things that happen are. There's something called, well, let me ask you a question. Let's say it was back in the days where people could actually be with each other. And your friend, you went down to the beach and you were around a campfire, and a friend of yours said, do you have a $50 bill on you? And you say, yeah. I went to the bank today. Actually, I do. It's rare, but I have a $50 bill on me. And they said to you, you know, would you do me a favor? Would you just kind of ball that up for me and throw it in the bonfire? You'd look at the person like they were out of their mind. Why would you do that? Because that's a crazy thing to do. It's just nuts. It's taking a valuable resource and just, boom, lighting it up and burning it away. You need to think of your attention as a resource. I'm writing a book right now called The Economics of Attention, because none of us would purposefully, intentionally take a valuable resource like money, which everybody needs more of, pretty much, and just burn it up. You would never intentionally go, oh wow, you know, that condominium structure, you know, out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on a floaty from a swimming pool, that looks like a really good investment. That just wouldn't happen. You would not intentionally invest your money, your valuable resource, into a bad investment. It's bad, just bad economics. Well, that's what you're doing when you decide or choose or allow, or any of those things, your attention to start being used to make up those stories, to chew over them again and again and again, and become obsessed with them and drill them into your mind. If you think of it that way, like you're just throwing money into a fire, burning it up or down the toilet, they would be putting you in the funny farm. So why would you do that? You never would. So you have to start realizing that your attention is a valuable, and certainly on a day-to-day basis, a limited resource. Now, we're human beings. We're going to have painful feelings. We were built to have painful feelings. It serves an evolutionary purpose. So and what you really need to understand is, what is a feeling? Now, a feeling is generally the body's reaction to either a negative thought or a constellation of negative thoughts put together, and you have a physical reaction to that. And that physical reaction feels really wrong. So you keep trying to fix it, but you keep trying to fix it with the same thing that built it, your ideas. Now, that's the right idea. That's the right thing to do. But you're not being selective and discerning with what you're doing to change that inside feeling. And that's what I'm going to give you today are real, not platitudes. You just got to think positively. You know, those things never work. Everybody's into this whole, you got to believe in yourself thing. I think the last thing you do is tell people they got to believe in themselves. Because who would you be telling that to? You'd probably be telling that to somebody who needs to believe in themselves more. Why don't they believe in themselves? Probably because they're hypercritical. They feel like they fail at everything they do or don't do enough. You've just given them another thing to fail at. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but if you run that through logically, there's no way that they're going to believe they believe in themselves sufficiently the next time they see you. And not only that, they're now going to have to lie to you, or have many will lie to you about how much they believe in themselves. So inside they know they're being inauthentic because they really don't buy it. Can anybody relate to that? I'd be interested in some comments from people who are listening. Are you with me so far? And also, has anybody had that experience where they've been told that they need to believe in themselves, but the minute somebody says that, you might have a second of...
Hey, you're getting a lot of agreement in the chat room.
Right.
People saying, yes, I can relate totally. Yes, 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 yes. +1, which in taxi lingo means a yes. I hate being fake. Yeah, it's wow.
Yeah.
They're literally like scrolling behind the screen. So yeah, you hit a nerve there.
Yeah, great. So you understand that. So let's start looking at what you do for this, because I definitely want to leave time for Q&A afterwards. So you can see why I'm excited about this subject, because it's really about taking what is conventional thought and turning it on its head. So one thing we spend almost no time on, well, let me back up. We have a concept of the self. We want to be liked. We actually need to be liked, and it makes sense that we want to be liked, because human beings, and if any of you heard me speak before, I talk about we're pack animals. And so the reason we're so afraid of being seen as less than or not good enough is because fundamentally, though very few people think about this, we believe we will be completely abandoned, we will be ejected from the pack, and the animal that's ejected from the pack, the isolated animal, usually dies. So think about it. Phrases like, I die of embarrassment. Oh, that would kill me. And many others of that nature. That really does speak to a fundamental concept on our part that we're in literal physical danger from being embarrassed or not giving a good performance. Okay? So, one of the things that we need to start doing is building up a sense of intrinsic value. I'm valuable, whether or not my performance is good or bad, or good or not good, desirable or not desirable. And I again appeal to you to be logical, because you're born. Nobody would view a baby coming out of the womb as a being that needs to account for itself and, do enough in the right way to get validation and be taken care of. So what's the age? What's the line? Where does that stop? That you just carry as a human life value. And this is very short, so I'm going to be shortcutting a lot of this that are very much deeper ideas. But until you start realizing that nothing you ever accomplish in your life can ever add one single bit of value to you, not even the slightest bit, nor can anything you fail to do subtract at all from that intrinsic value, that value as a human life. There's nothing that can do that. I'm not saying you can't accomplish things, but when you become more accomplished, are you more valuable? Well, situation, if you're out, ship sank and you're out in a rowboat with 6 guys or gals, and you're going to, you got a doctor, and then you got an arc welder, and there's not any metal on the boat. You're going to throw the arc welder to the shark before you're going to throw the doctor. But that's just situational. It's not because they're any more valuable, right?
Well, that kills my dream of going to vocational school and learning welding.
Michael, I'm sorry. I knew I was in danger of dashing that dream, so forgive me. I apologize. I'll make it up to you. So you understand what I'm saying? So then what replaces that? Well, if you really can get behind this idea that you have value as a human being, even if you think you're the biggest piece of junk in the world, it still doesn't change your actual value. It's just how you think of yourself. And then you stop trying to accomplish things to raise your value or validate yourself or get yourself validated or qualifying to live or have love or success or whatever. And the benefit of that is you have to change your reason for creating. Some of you are probably already there, but here you are, you get born. Here you are, you die. You got this time in between. What the heck do you want to do with it? What do you want to create during that period of time? Oh, okay, it's really about what I want to create. So anytime you hear yourself say something like, God, I've got to write that chorus to that song before the end of the night, hear yourself say it, change around and go, oh, wow, I really want to create tonight. I'd like to see if I can create a really terrific chorus, something that I'm really happy with, that gives the energy of X, Y, or Z. So you flip any I have to why do you want to? What's the purpose behind creating that? It can be monetary. Well, the more of these I create, the better I'll do. Now, that takes us directly to attention again. So the ability to pay attention to important things and ignore the rest has been a critical part, a critical survival skill as long as human beings have been alive, right? You start paying attention to the wrong things, just like we said, throwing money in the fire, you're not going to survive. As a matter of fact, the sense of rejection has an evolutionary purpose behind it. It keeps you from indulging, or at least is an obstacle from you indulging in continuous behavior that will get you ejected from the pack. So if you can look at it as something that you're conceiving of, and I'll take you through an exercise on that in a second, that is there to help you and keep you safe, then it's not going to be such a heinous thing that you've got to not feel and try not feeling something anyway. That's really tough. So in other words, it has a reason. Attention helps us to focus our awareness on a particular aspect of our environment, important decisions, or the thoughts in our head, and maintaining focus on the right things has been a challenge and always is a challenge for people. So let's start shedding some light on this. And even the phrase like that, shed light. Why do we want to shed light? Because it needs to have a purpose. The purpose is it's dark. We can't see. It's just this big thing called rejection. We need to see further into it. So let's turn on the lights a little bit. So let's say when you're waiting for somebody at a restaurant. Yeah, those used to be too. Wow, such a weird time.
Really?
None of the references. So you're waiting for somebody to come into the Zoom room, and they're not there. Well, our typical thing, our knee-jerk reaction is to get irritated. And not all of us, but a lot of people feel disrespected, mad that everybody always does that. There's a globalization for you. Whereas you can say this. Now, this is the first thing. You've got to break distance between being the emotion and being an observer of the emotion. And if any of you have delved into mindfulness or any other things like that, it's great when they get a new name for stuff. I've been teaching this forever. But isn't that interesting? One of my favorite phrases in the world. Wow, look at how upset I feel like I have to be. Isn't that interesting? Now, whether you're successful at doing that and it totally changes your feelings or just puts this big a gap, you now know that is not the whole truth and nothing but the truth. You become aware of your thought. And when you're aware of your thought, you can then leverage in, or maybe all you do is get aware, leverage in, well, is that the only thing I can feel? Or be thinking, or construct as a story? No, I can say, well, I've been really wanting to finish that article that I saved the other day. I'm going to read that till the person comes on. That's a very basic example, but know that no matter how heinous the situation, it can all be applied. Everything. You can apply that thinking to everything. Okay? So start looking at, have I lost awareness and lost consciousness so much that every single bit of my attention is how I failed, how I didn't come through, how I must be worthless, I must not be good enough. That's why Taxi turned it back and they've never taken one. That's why she won't go out with me or he won't go out with me again. All the things that we make up. But you can say, that's actually, even if there's some truth to it, that's still a construct. I don't have to think that thought, because if I think that thought, it's going to hurt. I'm going to have a negative reaction physically to that. All right. Now, so obviously you see that's an important thing to practice, and you really need to practice it, and I'll answer more questions about other ways to do that. But I just want to move on with it. Now, another thing, why does this attention matter so much? Because when we start putting our attention on these things that debilitate us, that undermine us, then we are not going to be able to put our attention on what can help us, which is write 10 more songs, send in 10 more. And as a matter of fact, having a knee-jerk response to rejection is actually going to stop you from putting yourself out there, because the people who are really successful do it more times, period. Now, there is lightning in a bottle. Sometimes people will just hit the first thing, but that is so rare. I personally don't want to bank my future on that. So you've got to be able to put it out there and put it out there again and again. And maybe you're superhuman and you can get over those feelings and grind through and everything. But imagine having to run up a set of stairs and you've got a backpack full of boulders. Versus you're wearing running shorts and a tank top. It's going to be a lot easier running up those stairs to reach your goal. So you need to look at this as an investment, as a career investment, so that you can do less work getting over rejection, which is imagined anyway, and then, et cetera, have to go through after that with spent attention of doing the work. Now, let's just say you're absolutely right. That person hated you, or they never want to see you again. They hope they never see your song submission come on their computer again. Let's say it's true. One of the biggest things that I try to teach people who are facing an artistic career is to play the long game. You got to play the long game. Remember, for them to say no to you, they have to know who you are. If they don't know who you are, they're not going to say no. So think of no, great, as the beginning of a relationship. I've trained myself that most of the time I do that because I debilitated myself with this so much of the time. Oh, they'll never call me in again. That's the end of my career. Oh, I don't get that many audition opportunities, whatever. When I go to bed, lie in bed for the rest of the day, it was torture. But now, it's the beginning of a relationship because I have enough experience where if I just don't go away, if I just take the long view, eventually they go, okay, he's like a piece of furniture. He's in the room. Okay, eventually maybe it's, maybe I'll sit down in that chair. That chair becomes my favorite chair. Just don't stalk. You got to learn some skill.
Right.
And that's a very important thing. But now attention is also a muscle that you can train. And that's why meditation is so important, or some mindfulness action, because you need to be able to train your attention so that this thing that you've been obsessing over for your whole life is no longer as attractive to you. So you need to learn how to move your attention away from it, which is helped if you raise the negative outcome of putting all that attention into it. So you're trying to realize how much it hurts you, and then also learning what you can do instead. So that's very important. And also something that I think is very interesting is that daydreaming has always been considered, or kind of going off, has been considered something that makes you lose focus and is distracting and all that. But recent studies have shown that it actually increases your attention, because when you play video games, they're so absorbing, or anything of that nature that absorbs you completely, that you're distracted from the negative pull. You start diminishing the effect and the power that it has over you. And everybody wants it to be all gone. Look for little increments. Do you feel at all different when you finish playing that video game than when you started it? If you feel at all different, that means you'll feel more different moving on. So you see, there's many, many different ways to do this. And all these things that I'm telling you don't just apply to rejection, but they are major, major things to be considering when your goal is to reject rejection. And the last thing I'll tell you, well, actually, it's not the last thing. Well, there's another test that I want to study that you're going to find fascinating. Some of you may know about, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm going to take a really quick left turn, and if I have your permission, I want a few responses in the chat. I'm actually going to be starting a follow-up class, a follow-up class to this talk in a couple of weeks. And I just wanted to let everybody know, I wasn't able to put up a page or anything, but I think it's, for many of you, something that'll help you move forward and you might find valuable. So my email address simply is Stephen@stephenmemel.com. If you're interested in doing it, it's going to be short. It's going to be like 3 different dates, maybe 3 weekends in a row or something, depending upon who gets in. And it's going to be low cost. I just want to do something that people can avail themselves of. So it'll be maybe a couple.
Oh, we just lost your audio. Oh,
Probably like $150 for 3 weeks. Not each week, just total. If you're interested in doing that, taking a deeper dive into this, and want to work on your situations, please send an email to Stephen@StephenMemel.com, or if you just want to put on my list, do that as well.
And Stephen with a V, by the way.
Yes, Stephen with a V, and then it's Memel. Okay? So, love to see anybody in there who's interested and help you out and help you get moving faster. All right, now, here's the interesting thing. Everybody's probably familiar with fMRIs, which is, the kind of things, the kind of MRI that actually can record lighting up the brain. What part of your brain is working during some particular activity. Well, here's a real revelation. When you think a painful thought and have a painful emotion, the same part of your brain lights up, as does when you are physically injured and actually in physical pain. Not from anything hurting, but it's the exact same part of your brain and feels exactly and makes your body experience the same thing as you would feel in an actual physically injurious situation. So I think that's pretty heavy.
If I may jump in for 1 second, I can confirm that when I went through my divorce from my first wife 35 years ago or whatever it was, I found that taking Advil literally minimized the pain. At the time, I thought maybe it's a placebo effect. I wasn't taking, other hard drugs to deal with it. I tried one Xanax and said, nope, that's not for me. But Advil literally took away the physical pain that came from the mental pain. So I believe that there's truth in that.
Absolutely. We were designed incredibly cleverly. So remember, if you want to intentionally damage yourself and reduce your chances of career success, indulge without any energy put into thoughts of rejection. Indulge in rejection. Don't give anything I said during this time a second thought. However, if you really are serious about having some success in this business, get rid of the wasted energy. Not because, it's a waste of energy. No, because you can prove to yourself logically and neurologically that it is a waste of energy. So I hope this has been valuable to you. And I want to open it up to questions now, if we have any time for that. Do we, Michael?
Yes, we do. We have exactly 15 minutes.
Great. So let's do it.
Okay. I see questions will be popping up on my chat here shortly. While we're waiting for that, the thing on my door at my office says value criticism over validation, which is really hard to accomplish. But I try and look at that every day and try and remember it so that I can incorporate it into my life.
Very important, having those things that really speak to you.
I'm waiting for questions. When will Economics of Attention come out?
It's probably going to be at least 6 months. But it will be coming out. It's something I've had in my mind a long time to do. And so if you're interested in being notified about that, send me an email as well. Okay?
I'll also, when it comes out, I'll feature it in the cool stuff section of our newsletter to make sure everybody knows it's out.
Excellent, Michael. Thank you.
You're welcome. Here is a question: how to deal with nasty comments on social media when you are an indie artist? Boy, is that a great question. Social media, everybody talks about, and I'm not getting political here, especially the day before the election, but everybody talks about, the president is divisive. I believe that social media has created a lot of that atmosphere. Whether you like his personality or you don't, leave him out of the mix. Social media was very divisive and nasty before President Trump got elected. So let's call it what it is. And that's a great question. How do you deal with the rejection that you get on social media?
Well, again, you shed light on it. So first of all, is everybody that you know in your world a genius? Of course not. When you think about a lot of people out there, well, they're not too bright, they don't pay attention to the right things, whatever. So you shed light on it by saying, why am I giving this random person my attention? Again, I would too. It would make me react, but I have solutions for that reaction. Okay. The other thing is, because it's public and it's media, and that's very important to remember, you do not want to get into it with a hater. And you've probably heard this before, but every single person who I've ever seen get into it comes out looking the worse for it. They come out sort of proving that person has some correct perception in that. So what you do is you graciously thank them for their feedback. You'll definitely consider it. Here's what I think differently, but I always want you to engage whatever your reactions are.
All right,
looking out, by the way, on media shaming and how it's truly ruined some people's lives. But even that you can recover from if you become more and more independent in your own world. Is that helpful?
Yep. And here's a question from Vicky Floweth. What strategy do you use when you know your thoughts are negative in a situation, but you feel unsure of how to change it?
Okay. What you do, to the best of your ability, is you go, I know these are negative thoughts. I feel like they're not negative, like they're just true. And I feel helpless right now to do anything about it. I just keep thinking it. Doesn't feel good to do that. The minute you say that, or isn't that interesting, or wow, you've stopped being the thought, or what I would call identifying with the thought. It stops being all that you are, and you have a tiny gap even between you and that gives you a starting place. The other day, I had a situation that was really drawing my attention. I knew I wasn't where I wanted to be, and so I wasn't able to work with it really well. So I said, what's something that I know this is true about? Well, when it rains, a lot of people get bummed out about the weather and it's raining. I don't, because I know that that's not the only way I can feel about that. And I don't feel that way because I've practiced it when it rains. So there's something that is happening that I know at a lower level this works for, and that led me in to be able to get to the bigger thoughts. Also, yeah.
Go ahead. Several people are coming. We're trying to go back to, here we go. Go ahead, finish your thought, and then I'll hit you with this question.
Okay. And the other thing is that just keep shedding more light. There's a whole school of psychology called narrative psychology, which says that events in and of themselves don't mean anything. It's the narrative that we attribute to it, the meaning that we give something, that actually creates the story of our life. And continuing to build resources that help with that truth.
Okay, this question comes from Smudgy. How do you balance taking the real useful information from criticism or feedback while not dwelling on the rejection?
Okay. Again, very, very good question. Because right now you have combined two things. One is evaluating somebody's feedback. The other is making that feedback mean something about your identity, who you are, not what you made. Okay? So once you get that, you can start asking yourself, do I agree with any of that feedback? Is that some feedback I want to see if other people have after they've heard it? Do I want to, ask them beforehand? You start being able to separate the valuable information from the stuff that's merely a narrative about it. Okay? Is that clear?
Yeah, this is deep stuff. I mean, I think you're hitting some amazing points. Each one of them deserves like a week of thought to absorb it. I mean, you can't just hear these things and go fix yourself in an hour. But man, you're hitting on some great stuff.
Yeah, that's why I said you have to practice these things, and you have to have exercises and tools to do that effectively.
All right, I think I've got another question here from Kim Daenerys. What about self-talk and affirmations?
Very powerful, very powerful. If you make an affirmation and you go, "Oh, that's a bunch of horseshit. I'm not the greatest writer in the world." Well, pare it down. Is there any affirmation you can make related to this topic? Can you say, "That's good. I put my attention to writing a song today." Not like I'm writing the greatest song. Don't try to sell yourself a bill of goods. Get something there that's an affirmation that you can stand behind. One that used to be very effective for me when I would find myself trying to convince myself of, sell myself a bill of goods was, whether I believe it or not, regardless of what I'm thinking, my good cannot be denied. It's not me being jealous of that person's good, because that's their good. My good cannot be denied. So that worked for me because it diffused it from being any scripted thing that it had to be. So that's a very important thing, is making sure it's something that you can buy. What was the second part of the question? I think there were two parts.
No, what about self-talk and affirmations?
And self-talk. I'm going to be experimenting with this, but I was at a seminar and they do this thing called an angel walk at the end, where everybody walks down between, it's like, a hoedown. There are people lined up on either side. You walk through it, your eyes closed. And everybody, you don't know who it is, puts their hand on your shoulder as you pass by and whispers something powerful about you in your ear. And I started doing an exercise for myself where I was pretending it was my mind talking to me. So I was making what they said my new tape that runs in my head, and practicing the idea that, wow, that's powerful. So I'm going to start experimenting with creating me talking to myself, or having friends do something like that, and then listening to it. And again, see if it changes things this much.
Almost the first thing you mentioned today, or one of the earlier things, was basically the Wolfpack syndrome, about wondering if you're not good enough, that rejection will cause you to be kicked out of the pack. That's incredibly primal.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's handed down genetically, God knows how long ago.
On purpose.
Yeah. I think there's not enough time left in my life to do the work that it would take to undo that thing that we have probably all inherited genetically.
Absolutely. Nor do you have to undo it. The thing I'd recommend to everybody is loosen the grip. Become aware that that's just another set of thoughts. And one exercise that I do with people is I take them back to that place where they've lost everything, They don't have a dime. They have no friends. Nobody will talk with them. I mean, nothing. You're stripped down to the bone. Well, would you never sleep again? Or would you find a tree or a park bench to lie down on and get some tree? Well, I probably would. Would you never, ever eat again in your life? Or would you forage through the garbage and find something to eat? Well, you'd probably find something to eat. So you start seeing that even at this imagined place where we are destitute and have no resources, we always have the strongest resource that's available to us, which is us.
That's deep stuff. We've got about 3 minutes left, and somebody posted a question. Can you offer up any tools to deal with the imposter syndrome, which you and I have spoken about as recently as a month ago?
Yeah. You have to finesse it. I'm going to make this a two-part answer. I keep threatening to, and I'm going to soon, is get a YouTube video of Bruce Lee. Because Bruce Lee, there's always parts in movies where he's surrounded by 30 guys. They're front and back and everywhere. But no matter how many times they come in from the attack, whether they're behind him or on the side or in the front, whatever, he has a kick or a punch or a block or something. So he prevails. That's what you need this to be doing, because your brain is very cunning. Your mind is very cunning, and it's going to figure things around, strategies around everything you come up with. So you've got to have a lot of tools. And imposter syndrome is just saying, I'm not good enough. Well, the first thing to ask it is, for what? For sitting in my room and writing a song? No, it's good enough for that. I'm not an imposter, right? Maybe a terrible song. Well, that's not what we're talking about. You know, are you a terrible songwriter? Yes. Do you know anybody worse? I mean, there's a million questions you can ask. And also, even if you're right about everything, I'm an imposter and I don't deserve it and all that, you can say, who made the rule that you have to deserve it? What if you don't deserve it? You want it anyway? It's yours. All you gotta do is do the work.
It's great advice, man. Boy, next time we have a physical road rally, I'm going to rent you some space up in my room and charge, like $20 a minute for people to stop in for therapy.
Thank you, Michael. I'm glad that felt good to you. And thank you everybody for taking your time to come and join me today. I've been very excited about this. And my hope for everyone is that there's at least one thing you're walking away from this with that will make a difference some way, even a little, in your life. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think one other thing we learned today is when using an iPad with Wirecast, prepare in advance. Anyway, sorry about the framing on this, everybody, but we had some technical issues. But the bottom line is we heard his voice, we saw most of his face, and we heard 100% of what you said. And it was great information as always. Thank you, Stephen, and appreciate you doing this. We will see you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, StephenMemel.com. If you want to get on his email list, Stephen@StephenMemel.com, right?
Thank you. That's it. Yes.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks, Stephen.
Bye.
I keep hitting the short one.
Oh.